welcome everybody to the FlowerHire Talent in Cannabis Sunset Sesh on the road this time. I'm Sloane Barbour, founder and CEO of Engine Sciences and a partner at FlowerHire. And I'm sitting in for Dave Belsky, FounderHire CEO, who's here in spirit, back taking care of the fam down in LA, but we are up here with the rest of the FlowerHire team, and we're excited to meet some great friends and make some new connections in the industry. Without further ado, I want to introduce a colleague, a friend, and a fellow cannabis executive, Jeffrey Schultz. Jeff, man.
So I've been in the industry for 3 years. I joined in 2018. And as you know, right, our friendship predates both of our rivals in this industry.
That's true.
Professionals.
You're one of my inspirations.
Yeah, right. And you see it every day. It's really just a passion for the industry and everything that it involves. Led me here and has kept me here, and I see that continuing for a very long time. So I got in the industry as a corporate lawyer working in the hedge fund industry, and I just, by chance happened to meet Sean Stiefel, the founder and CEO of Navy Capital, in 2018, and he is, Navy is a hybrid hedge fund private equity fund. They invest in both long, short, public names in the cannabis industry, and they do private deals as well. Roughly around $300 million.
Based out of New York.
Based out of New York. And,
one of the few.
One of the very few, right?
And the first.
I happened to have met them, and they were about to start a search for a general counsel. And so I joined in 2018 as the GC and a partner at the fund, and just went all in on it and love every aspect of the industry. And every day that I spend in here, I kind of like it more. So
well, it's especially when you get to really connect with folks in person and see old friends. And this is for many people the first time they've really traveled, and that's exciting. And I want to just say and give a shout out to our friends at Hall of Flowers. Kicks off tomorrow, Wednesday. This is Tuesday, first day when people start to arrive. And I believe there's thousands of people coming from all over the country, hundreds of brands, from California. And being an East Coast operator, being in New York, you're now with another law firm, and you have some assets out there that you've just picked up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what in particular about Hall of Flowers resonates for you as an East Coast operator?
Sure. So I joined back in May of 2020. Navy, we were a client of a law firm called Feuerstein Kulick, which is based in New York City.
Also one of the few cannabis law firms based in New York.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. It is a full service platform law firm dedicated to the cannabis industry. So operators, investors, ancillary service providers, and the like. We represent almost exclusively cannabis stakeholders. So I was a client of the firm actually before I joined, and Navy continues to be a client. I came over as a partner, and my personal book has expanded to representing investors, operators in the space, and we do everything from corporate M&A, state regulatory, real estate employment, and licensing, application writing. And
you recently acquired your own license and facility up in Massachusetts, right?
I did. We're closing next week. Closing date is circled for a day next week.
I'll congratulate you when it's done.
Yes. So it's really close, but it'll be really exciting to get into a different aspect of the industry. Having been an investor and still an investor and a lawyer in the space, getting into being
absolutely
an operator.
That's when you're really in the game.
Yeah, very exciting.
So coming out here to Hall of Flowers, looking at brands and having the perspective of an East Coaster and specifically a New Yorker, what are you excited about at this particular conference and coming out here to California?
So a couple things. First and foremost, right? We've been in COVID for a long time.
Yep.
I've had the luxury of traveling a little bit to the West Coast, unlike a lot of others, but this is a great opportunity to see my clients, our firm's clients, face to face, right? You cannot overstate the value of that face to face interaction with people that's been missing for so long. And that's my primary reason for coming out here, is really getting to see people in person, up close, whether they're my clients or their friends or their colleagues, whatever it may be. It's a growing ecosystem, but we all kind of people know each other.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a great opportunity to spend quality time with people that matter in my professional life. And then something that I would imagine resonates with you as a New Yorker, right? We're living in the dark ages in New York in the cannabis industry.
In the legal cannabis industry.
In the legal cannabis industry, right? Well, just generally speaking, your options are Mylar bags that you could buy in Times Square through delivery, or mediocre products in a very anemic medical market in New York. And to no fault of the operators in New York, really, the medical program is just lame. Yep. But that's about to change. So it's a very good opportunity to come see the bleeding edge of the CPG aspect of this industry at Hall of Flowers. This is the center of it. I really mean it when I say, like, I've been dying to come here to this event to see what's really going on. Most people, even in the industry, who don't visit the West Coast or California in particular, don't see the progress that's being made on the product side and the industry generally.
Yeah, it is a different world out here. And California is, of course, pioneers of legal cannabis for decades. There's a rich history of advocacy, a rich history of a lot of people working very hard to get us to where we are today. So it's also great to sort of honor, I would consider, the birthplace of cannabis and legal cannabis. Now, you could argue as a New Yorker, and not to piss off my California friends on their home turf, but New York has had a centuries-long history with the plant as well. The plant was there when the Native Americans were living.
George Washington grew hemp at Mount Vernon.
Exactly, and the sort of throughout the Revolutionary War and beyond, and then of course lots of persecution and oppression after the sort of war on drugs was launched, and in New York City in particular.
Yep.
Very disproportionate amount of folks serving prison time from specific communities in New York. And so it is one of the most progressive bills in the country, and it's one of the most progressive cities in the country. And we talked about it earlier, Madison Avenue is New York. That's where brands are sort of maybe not born, but that's where they're raised. So what do you think you can really take back with you, and what are you excited about when you look at New York, and how do you think it's going to be different than what you maybe see here in California today, in New York 3 years from now at Hall of Flowers, New York City 2025?
Yeah, look, I hope I hope that there is a Hall of Flowers in New York in a few years, and it's meaningful, and it's as progressive as it is here, right? What's going to happen in New York? We passed a very meaningful piece of legislation statewide, and it's, the goal is incredible, right? The overarching goal here is to award half of the licenses to minority and women-owned businesses. Right. And I can tell you firsthand that is translating into reality based on, we have an affiliated consulting business with the law firm that does application writing. And you can just tell from the pipeline and the actual clients that we have that have engaged us to write New York apps. It's really encouraging to see what's going to happen. I think it will look unlike anything else, right? One, it's New York. It's New York City. We have 19 million residents statewide. We have tens of millions of tourists coming through. More than anything, I think the immediate impact I see two things happening. One is the proliferation of women and minority-owned businesses in a meaningful way in New York and New York City in particular, which is fantastic and something I hope we can accomplish successfully as an industry, including the regulators and lawmakers. I hope that we can achieve the goal that they've set out. I think it's
aspirational.
It is.
You need to set that aspirational vision, but we're really moving into execution mode in New York. Multiple members of the Cannabis Control Board, that's what they're calling it, right? CCB. Have been approved and seated. Are they officially seated?
They've been confirmed by the Senate.
Okay. And who are they, and any insight into these folks and sort of what that's going to shape up looking like?
Sure. So we have the first few, right? And look, it's encouraging. It's very clear that the state is trying to make up for lost time as a result of Governor Cuomo stalling on this and treating this as a pawn in a larger game. So, look, hopefully we'll have the entire board seated. My guess is that we'll have those appointments by the end of this month. Yeah. But that's pretty soon. That's the end of next week.
The end of September 2021.
Yeah. Hopefully they're writing the regs right now. Hopefully they've started that process.
The governor who replaced Cuomo, Kathy Hochul, has been a bit friendlier to the movement and specifically the legislators that have sort of pioneered this particular bill, because it wasn't Cuomo's baby.
Correct. It wasn't. I think he was agnostic about it at best.
Yeah.
Right. So what we've seen now is there's some interesting dynamics at play. Governor Hochul's from Buffalo and Buffalo area, and Crystal Peoples-Stokes, who really deserves a shout out as one of the primary champions of legalization generally, and certainly she wrote with others. Like Senator Kruger wrote the bill, wrote the MRTA. She's also from Buffalo, so Crystal Peoples-Stokes and the governor are both from Buffalo. I suspect that they have a relationship that pre-exists her rise to being the governor, and it looks like that they probably have a better working relationship perhaps than the governor, the former governor did, and that should help expedite things along, and we'll see where it goes. The other thing that I think we could see as a secondary impact of legalization is the normalization of cannabis in New York and New York City as the financial center of the world could have an impact on capital raising, investors in the space, service providers who are in this industry who may now see dispensaries on street corners near their offices or their homes. And while it takes some time, it's a way, the industry will be normalized to some extent, and that may get certain people over the hump to operate in this industry, whether as a service provider, or as retail, or something else.
Well, I want to talk on the note of normalization in finance in particular, and some of the things that are happening on a macro level, because I think your observations as it relates to the current momentum in the East Coast and in New York in particular, it's an aspirational bill. There's a lot of opportunity. Licensees are starting to line up, and there's going to be 700 and some retail licenses and 4.5 million square feet of canopy, something like that. So you're looking at and a $5 billion state.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes at scale, but right now, many people believe that the New York City market alone is several $1 billion in current underground. So you also have this, existing thriving economy, right? That's quite sophisticated. And having lived in New York City for 11 years, I've had access to pretty high quality cannabis product in a very great customer experience
at a really good price point.
At a decent price point you want to first and foremost help those people move over to the legal side, give them an incentive to do so. But you also have to come up with a regime that's going to allow legal operators to compete. Correct. Right? And one of the key cruxes of that is, I think, there's two really, and I want to talk further about delivery and social consumption. Sure. Right? Because what we're seeing, I was just enjoying some of these new beverages that are really, really hot at this conference in particular, and just in general. And you think about something like this. This is Gem and Jane, which is a CannaCraft product with THCV in it, which is actually very cool.
Appetite present.
Yeah, and a little bit more uplifting, which is kind of a great thing that people want from drinks. And New York is a drinking culture, whatever you're drinking. Green juice in the morning, coffee in the morning, booze at night, or potentially some new paradigm. So what do you think about social consumption and delivery in New York, and how it could be paradigm shifting for all cannabis?
A green monkey, this is a little different, but same idea. It's actually really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What flavor is that?
This is tropical citrus. It doesn't have any aftertaste, which a lot of the drinks do.
No, this one doesn't have any aftertaste either.
Yeah, no, it's actually quite good. I've never had it before, but shout
Gem
out to
and
those
Jane,
guys. It's great.
Check it out.
So, yeah, look.
We have a VP of marketing from CMO from CannaCraft coming, so got to shout them out.
Yes. Okay. Got it. So look, consumption lounges. Oh yeah. Let me start with delivery. Right. So delivery has this already has a little bit of a history in the bill. It was put in, it was removed, it got put back in at the last second. There was a lot of debate as to what it should look like in the bill. How do we allow for delivery? Because the state did rightfully acknowledge that delivery is absolutely required if you're going to compete with the current traditional market, right? You can't. We all know that anybody who lives in New York they know that everything gets delivered to your house, whether it's your dry cleaning.
Billions and billions of dollars worth of commerce is delivered annually in New York. Food from within New York. It's
food, dry cleaning, cannabis, right? So it's everything. So they rightfully included that as a licensing category, but they did cap the amount of full-time employee or FTE equivalents to 25.
Right. With the idea that maybe Uber or Amazon or even Ease might have a more difficult time competing there. Some of the more corporate players that
and that's what they wanted. Right?
That is what they wanted.
That was a nod to traditional market operators and a desire to convert them over into the legal industry, the regulated business. Let's keep it relatively small. I've had an opportunity to speak with a lot of the existing traditional market operators, and their headcount is usually in all cases below 25.
Yeah, sure.
So the
and with that in that instance, have you seen an on-ramp being built sort of specifically in that category?
Yes.
Because it really is a flip of the switch. Nothing's a flip of the switch, but with delivery in particular, you got a customer base. Yep. You got a product you deliver. It's just sort of switching out the product to a regulated product.
It's a
little more complicated, but
it depends, right? There's a spectrum, right? I've spoken to people that continue to operate and just say, well, one day, I'll figure it out. When I need to get a license, I'll figure it out. And there are others that I've spoken to who have been actively preparing their business for the regulated market with every intention of doing it, right? So the latter group of people seem to be really well prepared for what's about to happen, and they're ready to strike on that.
And these are still, even with 25 employees, multi-million-dollar opportunities, good businesses that will have a loyal customer base that they can scale and deliver value to, and have a direct personal relationship with, which they usually do already.
You don't need to be, a rocket scientist, which I am certainly not. No one's ever accused me of that, or even being good at math, which is why I went to law school. But you do the back of the envelope math, right? If you even have 20 people doing deliveries 8 hours a day, say that they could do 2 deliveries an hour with an $80 basket size 7 days a week. You can add those numbers up. You see what the numbers look like. Those are big numbers. Just from a very, it's an asset-light business. You need some sort of piece of property, maybe a warehouse somewhere centrally located in Queens or the Bronx, and there's some tech behind that, I think, to put some fire onto it. But no, it's going to happen, and I think that delivery is absolutely essential. Will be essential to the regulated market, right? It is here in California, right?
Yeah, and as it has been, and delivery is one of those things that's like just, I think, leveling out the playing field. But to your point about future, right? So goes New York, so goes the world, right? And I think the biggest significant piece, and because after New York, I want to spend 2 minutes on one more thing around the financial center and like what that might look like with a few recent developments. But to finish off the point on, transforming the culture in a way, or at least having a bit of an offshoot on the culture. I think social consumption, beverages, experiences, social experiences, which are core to New York life, right? And a lot of it centers around alcohol at present. And what does that future look like with social consumption and different paradigms?
TBD, right? So we talk about this all the time, and it's a source of frustration for me, I guess. Maybe more concern than frustration, I'd say right now, because we need to ensure, and now the stakeholders in the industry should be ensuring that the CCB promulgates regulations that allow for a profitable business model for consumption lounges. And this is the issue is exacerbated by how liberal New York City in particular is about cannabis consumption generally, which is you are allowed to smoke cannabis anywhere where you can smoke a cigarette.
Right now,
right now,
right after the law
walk down the street, everybody walk
and
through
people are doing it,
and they're taking advantage of it. As you know, right, the whole city smells like weed, and there's nothing we can do about it, and there's nothing cops can do about it. It's no longer a crime. That, unlike West Hollywood, for example, creates this dynamic where maybe less people are interested in going to a specific location to consume when they can stand on the street corner and consume, right? Do they want to be somewhere private, right? So it doesn't make for the best case for consumption lounges. And then there's a question about which form factors will be allowed, how much limitations will be put on how much you could purchase in one sitting, to avoid some of the issues that perhaps we've seen in other states like California around some consumption lounges and consumer safety and health. So I think that if you have to consume everything that you bought, and you're going to be very limited. You and I could go and buy one gram joint, and that's it. And we have to actually consume it. We're not allowed to take it home. And then we sit on the couch for 5 hours. Right. That's the opposite of what goes on in the nightlife scene, where we could spend 3 hours in a nightclub, or any group of people, right, and spend $10,000-$15,000 on bottle service that's marked up 1,000%. Right. That's a profitable business. So we just have to make sure that the regs allow for a business model that makes sense. Right. But yes, that it's New York City. People are going to want to see it. There are ideas that I've been hearing from clients and prospective clients that are super compelling that would make for a great business, and I hope that some of those people win licenses and we get to see it in action. It's just crazy good ideas.
Yeah, and it's exciting to think about what hasn't even been thought of yet.
Yes.
Right, and I think that's what you're going to see coming out of New York with that creative
Correct.
energy. So last thing, because we're going to wrap, but I think there's an important note on safe banking that Jeff's got some insight in I want to talk to you about. But just so everyone knows out there, we have some great content coming your way here up at Hall of Flowers. We're speaking to the team from Timeless about their incredible vape products. We're speaking to Nick Fasano, the former Chief Revenue Officer of Ease, who's now a special advisor on that journey and some of the big news that came out of that, billion-dollar company at this point. Some other great surprise guests and some great in-person activations, as well as some chats with some of the folks that are in the Hall of Flowers venue and what they're seeing in there, and some sort of notes from the field, if you will. But to send you home, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jeff. Jeff, it's always great to connect with you. You're very well, you just have a lot of insight. You're always on the phone, talking with people in shadowy corners of the industry, and you seem to have your finger on the pulse. Safe banking is something that's been swirling around the drain for years.
Yep.
And we got some news just today, and maybe some more news tonight, about an update on that bill. Can you give us an update on what you think that does if it gets through?
Sure. So Representative Perlmutter introduced Safe Banking Act as written, as passed the House 3 times already. Introduced it as an amendment to the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. That's a bill to authorize the funding of our military, which, as you can imagine, is a must-pass bill. Everybody knows it's got to pass. It's always passed on a bipartisan basis. So this is a way to get a bill, get safe banking onto a moving train that is going to its station no matter what.
Right.
The question is, can it survive in this bill? It just passed the most important hurdle in my mind, which was the House Rules Committee approved its inclusion. And it will be when the House votes on the floor to pass safe banking or pass the NDAA, it will include safe banking. So now there's a question as to whether it will pass the House, right, or they'll strip it out. It looks like it could stay in there, but there's a lot of work being done on that front. The next thing to happen is to see whether the Senate follows suit. And as you know, Senator Schumer and Cory Booker and Wyden have introduced the CAOA, which is a full federal legalization.
The most comprehensive bill that's ever been presented.
And there's a lot of conversation, and they've said it themselves, like we are not passing some banking legislation ahead of full-blown decriminalization and regulation of this market. But they know as well as I know, and anyone else following this, we don't have the votes yet for the CAOA, and it's a good work in progress. But what we do need is safe banking.
And safe banking, just so folks know, which is essentially literally if you're operating in a state legal cannabis state, you have the same rights and privileges of any other legal entity, even though you're still technically running afoul of federal regulation from a scheduled perspective.
It allows depository institutions, banks, to provide their suite of services to cannabis operators, and it'll blow open the insurance industry. So from an operational perspective, plant touching businesses, which is a term I hate to use because it's not a legal technical term, plant touching, but everybody gets it, right? Plant touching businesses, it is very difficult to procure any type of insurance, and if you can, it's extremely expensive. D&O, E&O, property and casualty, crop insurance, right? These things should be open now to everybody. Should reduce the cost of insurance for all operators. And I think most importantly, it creates a safer environment and not I would say non-cash environment, but a lot less cash in the stores. So it's an issue of consumer safety and operator safety. And these employees who, you have employees who are having, it's difficult to get health insurance, and then you have to go to a place where you have to worry about your physical safety. It's kind of nonsense that that's the case. So that this bill would change it. It's unclear whether it will eventually lead to the opening of U.S. capital markets. That is something that I think will play out over time.
Absolutely.
We'll see if it happens, but certainly allowing for banking and insurance. I don't think it's going to necessarily allow for credit card transactions in dispensaries. That's up to Visa and MasterCard and the banks with which they do the most business. So we'll see. I wouldn't expect Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan to hop in and start
This is a
banking.
step change. It's not a sea change. It's moving in the right direction for the current market. But as you said, there's also participants who should be able to enter the market in other states, and especially folks from the decrim perspective federally, are still serving time. Getting them out of prison should be the number one priority of the.
On a related note, right? It's not a matter of decriminalization, right? It's not a criminal justice issue per se, but what everybody should understand is the cost of capital in this industry is extremely high. And take New York, for example, where they're going to award half these licenses to women and minority-owned businesses. And a lot of these people, I can guarantee the criteria, particularly for social equity, is such that these are not people that know family offices. They don't know uber wealthy white men who, by and large, have staked to this entire industry to date. So for the New York program in particular to be successful in those overarching goals of giving half those licenses to minority-owned businesses, and then immediately strangleholding them by not allowing them access to traditional banking or capital is not. Senator Diane Savino said it recently. She's senator from New York. If and until we legalize banking in this industry, New York's program is going to be an abject failure. So hopefully we get to see that through, and it will help New York.
Yeah. So goes New York, so goes the world. Big thank you to those out there that tuned in. We'll have all of this posted up on our site at flowerhire.com and through LinkedIn. Again, I'm Sloane Barbour. It's great to connect with you all, and as always, great to connect with you, Jeff.
Thank you, always.
All right, take care. We're coming back to you live from Hall of Flowers soon. Keep tuned in.